Phil, that was Gurvinder Singh of the Sikh faith, and I think that was the first Sikh we've had on the show. And I learned a lot, and I must say I am less familiar with Sikhism than many other religions, so I'm glad to have learned more. And I feel I should learn more about it, and hopefully we'll have other folks from the Sikh faith on. But it was very, very interesting. How familiar are you, and have you ever been to any of their services?
I have not been to a service in a gurdwara, but I've been to interfaith events and the Parliament of Religions, and attended some of their sessions, participated in some of the music, listened to talks and chanting, and was fed. Fed
What was
very
what was their food
happily
like?
in the Longum.
Are there any
What?
restrictions in their diet? Do they eat everything? Is it like
Well,
regular
that's a
Indian
good
food?
question. I don't know the entirety of it, but at these events, where they feed hundreds and thousands of people, it's all it's very similar to what you think of as Indian food,
Right.
probably a Punjabi variation, but vegetarian. And now I don't know that being vegetarian is part of the faith. I suspect it's not,
Hmm.
but on those occasions where they're feeding so many people, it's vegetarian.
Yeah.
So,
Now, if
rice and all that.
if I remember correctly, Yogi Bhajan was a Sikh, or certainly wore a
Yes.
turban, and his group was known for having restaurants, and very good restaurants, and serving food. And I'm wondering, would he have been considered, and we may have to research this, a mainstream Sikh, or was he some splinter group? And I wonder
Yeah,
how he would.
that's a good question. We should have one of the yoga teachers that were trained uh, by him or in his lineage on, because I mean, it gets complicated because yoga is, some elements of yoga are practiced within the Sikh faith and within Hinduism, Buddha, obviously Hinduism, but Buddhism and Jainism. So there's yogic elements, and what he brought out and what he called Kundalini yoga, um, I don't know how much of that is sort of standard Sikh practice. I suspect it's some kind of amalgam of some traditional Sikh elements and Hatha yoga and other practices that
Hmm. Hmm.
are common in India.
Yeah. I wonder also now if in India, which I believe the current head of India is very much a nationalist, if it's a tough time for the Sikhs there, because they are the fourth largest religion, small in comparison to certainly Hinduism and even Islam there. And I wonder if they're being further
Well,
persecuted. He made it sound like in '85 there was an ethnic cleansing from what he
yeah,
said. Yeah.
well, it's complicated, and I don't know enough, but
Hmm.
obviously um, there's been a history of tension and conflict, and it's terribly unfortunate. I'm sure people have different perspectives. Um, Gurvinder gave us a Sikh perspective. I don't know what the average Hindu or the average spokesperson for the Indian government would say, because these things are always more complicated than they appear to be. But there's been a big issues. The Golden Temple
Right.
at Amritsar, which is one of the places in India I've never been and would like to go, has it was the scene of horrific occurrences. And there are Hindu people who think that it was once the site of a temple, and was, I don't want to get into it.
Well,
It's just very
what's interesting is,
complicated.
on the other hand, Manmohan Singh was the
Yeah,
prime
was the
minister of India
president of
for 10
India.
years, from 2004 to
Yeah,
2014. And
And the average Indian honors the Sikhs, and
right,
they meet, they know each other, they hang out, they do business together, they marry each other. I mean, it's in ordinary daily life. Sikhs are just part of the culture, and he talked about Sikhs wanting to be part of the U.S. Military. Well, in India, the Sikhs are, incredibly
right.
honored as warriors and great military figures from throughout the last few hundred years.
Right. And yes, religion is, it's very, very hard to describe. If somebody who knew nothing about Christianity, if somebody who knew nothing about Judaism, and you tried to explain it to them in the different, well, these are the charismatics, and these are the,
Yeah.
the liberal, and these are the, Reform Jews, and these are the Orthodox, and then there's a Sephardic sect, and then in Christianity you have Opus Dei. I mean, one might say, really, you're talking about one religion? So I think within any one religion, there has to be a multitude of factions, and
Sure.
it leads to great confusion. So we shouldn't be so surprised that everything's not as clear cut. Now, he also mentioned, Phil, and I was trying to read about it before we interviewed him, about their spiritual practices, and he said when they get up in the morning, they meditate on, yeah, their God, or their first guru, or whomever. And I'm wondering is if there is a group of mystic Sikhs who does a specific type of meditation, or is it just more of a reflection, like, meditate on St. John of the Cross or whatever like that.
Yeah, I
And
don't know. I don't know. It's a good question, because it's a little known religion. I mean, we
mm,
know that within Islam there's, a mystical segment, the Sufis. We know there are Christian mystics. We know there are Jewish mystics. And I'm guessing there's an equivalent. There's a more mainstream Sikhism, maybe a more esoteric practices, but I don't know enough to say. Or it could just be that the mystical origins of these faiths
hmm
is then folded within the mainstream of the tradition. I don't know enough. It's a good question.
right. And I wonder now, if what's going on in the United States, if fewer Sikhs are coming into the country, not because they're being prevented from coming in, because there is a concern or a fear to come in. I spoke to somebody who just came to the States from Europe, and they said there were far fewer Middle Eastern people coming in. They saw at the airports in London and all than they saw before coming into the States, and not because of a travel ban, because there was no travel ban at the time they came in about a month ago, but because I think that people are very confused about what is going on in the States, and whether they'll be accepted in or not, and if they come in, will they be able to get out, and so on and so forth. Hopefully
Yeah,
that'll all pass. Hopefully that's confusion, and we can go beyond that. But right now
yeah.
it's a confusing time, and I think for the Sikh community, and it's very important that people understand who they are, that they're not an inherent threat, that so many Sikhs have served in the U.S. military, and that Sikhism is a religion unto itself, which I think most people in the States don't understand. So
No, they don't. And
hopefully, in our show,
people.
we aim to educate people as well as, inform them about contemporary spirituality, but educate them about all these things.
I hope so, because it's a very sad thing. I remember right after 9/11, one of the first victims
Right,
of sort of anti-Muslim backlash was a Sikh, a merchant, as I recall.
right. I think in Texas,
And
yeah,
I mean, and if you're a traditional Sikh and you're wearing a turban, it's a bullseye for
right.
lunatics and who don't know, one from the other. I mean, there have been Hindus also who have been attacked, because people just think anybody with brown skin or looks like they came from India, the Asia or the parts of, it can look like they're from the Middle East and are, jihadists or something. I mean, it's a sad, sick situation.
Right.
Not to make a pun, but
Well, yeah. Hopefully, our show, amongst other things, can help educate people and teach people that
yep,
there are differences, and that's okay. And by the way, you stay tuned. We have on our podcast now, Phil, I think somewhere around 110, 115 shows posted at
yep.
spiritmatterstalk.com. Phil's busy away working on this is June 2017, and Phil, we don't want to say this a year from now or 2 years from now, but Phil is very close to finishing his biography of Paramahansa Yogananda. And if you are listening to this in 2018, hopefully you'll read it already, and if you haven't, you'll go out and get it soon. And I also wanted to mention, hey, we are self-funded. We haven't monetized what we're doing. Any ideas from anyone out there about how we can support and continue our Spirit Matters talk? We would be very open to your suggestions and ideas, and certainly it's a lot of fun to do.
Well, thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, I'm not putting pressure on you. You know, the publisher didn't call me and say, "Hey, I mentioned it on
You
here."
don't need to. I'm hanging up right now and getting back to work.
Back to the so much, and we have a lot of great shows coming up. So stay tuned and thank you
Okay.
for listening. Next time.
Bye.